December 2nd. Arrived in camp to find our tent filled with 6 loafers. They left very quickly, at our request and Sergeant Donohue's urging, but it took my tent mates and me quite a while to clean up the mess they left. These loafers was so lazy as to chop up our bench, barrel table, and stools for firewood. They was from a Maine regiment, and we somehow would have expected better of them than we got. I was so tired I thought I would fall asleep the minute I pulled the covers over me, but I stayed awake a very long time instead, thinking of this and that, but mostly seeing myself running at the enemy and screaming and seeing muskets flashing in my direction. And the dead Red Boy. He had come back too. I have been in fighting before, but this is the first time a memory has followed me so long after. Is this another part of my bad luck? To remember? December 3rd. We built ourselves a bench and more stools, but barrels are scarce, so we have no table yet. Drilled, helped unload wagons, and cleared a section of brush behind the sutler. I asked Henry Clements about his life, and it was as if the heavens had opened up and a great rain had begun to fall. He talked and talked and talked, a deluge of words, and told me how his great-great-great-great-grandparents had settled in New England and raised 7 children. Then he told me what happened to each of these children, and their children, and theirs. It was like all the begats in the Bible, how Cain begat Enoch, who begat Irad, who begat Mehujael, and on, till my head was spinning. If I have this correct, Henry Ours was born to Henry, the 4th or 5th Henry Clements to appear, and to Henrietta Clark, who was a second cousin of this Henry, and who bore a strong resemblance to some other Henry's mother, which created talk in the family, it appears. Anyway, Henry, our Henry's father, ran a dry goods store and a livery service, and Henrietta gave piano lessons and played the organ in church. They was fairly well off and well connected, and had even tried to keep Henry Ours from having to go into the war by buying a substitute for him. But Henry Ours did not think it an honorable thing to do, so he enlisted. Henry said he was given a very good education, and even went away to Harvard College, which is a good thing, I think, just to keep all of his relatives straight in his head. I think I will not add another history to this journal for some time. Johnny is writing home for some herbs to put in a concoction that will, in his words, let you sleep like a baby even under the barrel of big guns. I am almost afraid to say it, since I worry that some of my bad luck might rub off on him. But he is as close to a friend as I have ever had. December 4th. 2 from our company deserted last night, and another would have, but a sentry spotted him and brought him in. One of those who got away was our tent mate, Charles Buell. I guess helping a few Negroes to get to Canada is a lot different than getting shot at for them. Several men have the bloody flux and are in the hospital, which was a barn before we got here. Later, the man caught deserting was sentenced to stand on a platform in the middle of camp for 24 hours without coat or hat. After this, he will clean out the horse and the mule corrals by himself till Lieutenant Tom says otherwise. Most of us think this a fine enough punishment because he did not run off during a battle. But others, especially his fellow greenhorns, think he deserves something more severe. It is true that in some brigades he could be tried by court-martial and sentenced to be shot, but our Colonel Titus has a more lenient attitude with his men. Of course a discussion developed over this. Soldiers are always scouting for something to yap about, and this discussion boiled up into a little argument when talk got around to the best reason to fight in this war. Sergeant Donohue said he was part of the regular military before the war, and would be after, and following orders, especially to fight, is how you advance in rank and pay. John Farmer said he was a good Christian, and that the bondage of slavery had to be broken once and for all time. George Chittenden said he was also a good Christian, but did not care one bit about the Negroes, and they could all go back to Africa as far as he was concerned. He joined because the rebellious states had committed treason and had to be taught a powerful lesson. Lyman Swim came because 2 of his friends did, and he did not want to be seen as a coward or a copperhead. I was asked why I put my neck at risk, and when I said, because I needed a pair of boots and dinner, everybody laughed. But that is the truth. And when the sergeant asked why I didn't leave after I got my feet covered and belly full, I got an even bigger laugh when I answered, because the boots fit perfect and the dinner tasted good, which is also the truth. At the time I signed my papers, I had been on my own for 3 months, and while happy to have freed Uncle and Aunt of my bad luck, I have to admit there was too many quiet, hungry nights. December 5th. Drilled in the morning, chopped wood in the afternoon. Lieutenant Toms was beaming. This is how the little professor described his smile, as he read the part of the official report saying, "Special note is made of the distinguished actions of Companies K, Lieutenant Wooster, and G, Lieutenant Toms, who engaged a superior number of enemy skirmishes threatening our line of march and subsequently drove them off." The lieutenant was not made a captain, but this recognition pleased us anyway. Of course, Shelp had to say, "Hey, Jonah boy, they didn't mention you or your hero's charge," and this bothered me more than it should have, because I really did not want to be mentioned. Or did not think I did. 4 more men have come down with the bloody flux, so 7 are in the hospital now. We also have 2 cases of the ague, though I am not one if you do not count waking in the middle of the night with the cold sweats and troubled thoughts. December 6th. Drilled, chopped, ate, looked at the newspaper, and avoided Shelp. That was my day. And wrote this. December 7th. Same as yesterday, though we did not drill or chop today. Lieutenant Tom said I might want to add the names of the 6 new men still here, so I will. Private Washington Evans, 19. Private Asa Rich, 21. Private John Robinson, 35. Private Otto Parison, 33. Private Hudson Marsh, 22. And the near deserter, Private Thurin Chrysler, 19. No one will have Chrysler in their tent, so he is in a wedge tent by himself near the swamp. Despite his isolation, we know when he is near because of the high stink he trails wherever he goes. Also, I was appointed temporary corporal, because Corporal Bell has been sent north for his broken leg, and Corporal Drake has been added to the numbers in the hospital. I tried to say I do not want to be corporal, but Sergeant Donahue said it was not like an invitation to a dance, but an order, and Sergeant Donahue can be very convincing. I am not the praying sort, not since leaving Uncle's, but I did pray that Bell's leg and Drake's stomach get better fast so I would not be corporal very long. What happened in the woods was an accident, and I do not want others to think it will ever happen again. December 8th. Same as above with the chopping, but without drilling, though I did not get to relax with the other men because I had to carry messages for Lieutenant Toms and Sergeant Donahue and fill out the roster. 2 of my new duties. The big excitement was the disbursement of a ration of Army whiskey, 4 spoonfuls each carefully dealt out by Sergeant Donahue. Now, was that not a big drink? I think the sergeant got the best of this arrangement, as he had a chance to smell the whiskey before we got it. Decided to try another history and approach William Kittler, but Kittler said he did not want to talk, and when I said it was an order, he said he had no recollection of his parents, or where he was from, or even of enlisting. Johnny thinks Kittler may be hiding some kind of sordid past. Kittler is always unusually quiet and often goes off by himself, but he has also been an honest enough soldier to date. Johnny joked that I get a history from Shelp, but I am not that brave yet. So I told Johnny it was his turn instead. Johnny told me his father died when he was young, and that his mother raised him and his 3 sisters on the family farm. She would get us up and fed, then go out and plow the field or hire a crew to harvest the crops, then come back and bake pies for the church dinner and such. She has more energy than all of G Company put together. Johnny intends to take up farming too, and thinks he will marry a girl he knows in a nearby town when the war ends. December 9th. A quiet Sunday at home. The Christian Commission and a pack of preachers descended on the camp and went to every tent looking for like thinkers. A meeting was to be held on the drill field, with promise of a free package of useful articles for those who attend. Some went along to the meeting, but most stayed inside out of the cold, writing letters, reading, playing cards, smoking, and such. I have noticed that in the warm weather when we are fighting, many of the men are pious followers, but during the winter when things are quiet and shootings is rare, few respond to the call, unless offered a package. I thought about going myself, to avoid having to deliver messages, and for the package, except that the first thing the preacher who came by did was quote the Bible, and this reminded me too much of Uncle. So I stayed in our tent and joined pieces of broken candles together to make one good one. Every so often, when the wind shifted, I could hear the sweet sounds of hymns singing, and then I listened to the words very carefully. Sleep still restless, but hope for better tonight. December 10th. Very cold during the night, and a young snow fell. Very unusual this time of the year, according to those who know, which has turned everything white and covered many undesirable flaws in the camp, such as our trench latrine. B&H Company staged a snowball battle, with B Company taking the part of the Rebs. B Company seemed to be getting thorough drubbing when one of our boys shouted, "Here comes old Jeb Stewart and his boys!" And we dashed in, scooping up snow and throwing it just as fast as we could, till it was H Company's turn to back up. Other companies joined the fight, and even some officers. Pretty soon we had a fine battle going with 600 soldiers at least. I took a ball of packed ice in the back of the head, but when I turned I couldn't see who had thrown it. I have my suspicions, however. December 11th. Drilled a little, but not with much enthusiasm. The weather is so cold that our hands are numb, and there are many long faces in camp. Johnny put together a fine-smelling stew for the tent, but when I put my spoon in for a taste, the pot fell from the pool and most everything was lost in the fire. There was some grumbling about my heavy-handed spooning, but Johnny said it wasn't my fault. He is a steady friend. Had hardtack and what we could salvage from the fire, which was a few potatoes and gritty chicken, as dinner. Word about my accident spread through the camp quickly, because later, when out walking, Shelp said, "Hold on to your cooking pots, boys. G Company's Jonah is coming." Fewer responded to sick call today, though several, including Corporal Drake, remain in the hospital and are not better despite repeated doses of quinine. December 15th. Boiled our clothes this day, then assembled a nice stew, which did not fall into the fire. Unlike some tents, we did clean our pot before going from one activity to the other. The stew is an interesting mix of real and desiccated vegetables and beans, but would have been better if we had added an onion, in my opinion. December 16th. Lieutenant Toms read this journal and said, "Good God, Corporal, next you'll be putting in recipes for pie." He then said I did not have to write so much, and that when I did, it should be something truly interesting or significant, and generally of a military nature. I guess that means I should not mention the outbreak of lice that has laid siege to 2 tents and threatens the rest. December 25th. Christmas Day began with the delivery of mail and packages. Johnny received a box filled with newspapers, letters, sweets, and canned food. I think he saw that I was all alone in my bed, so he made me help him open up all the little boxes and tins so that we could sample the gifts. Then he glanced through a batch of letters and said, "Jim, this one's for you." At first I thought he was joking, and I felt embarrassed that I was the only one in the company with no family outside. But he saw this and added, "I am not joking, Jim. This letter has your name on it. Here." And he handed it to me. I looked at it and could hardly believe what I saw. Private James Edmond Pease, Company G, 122nd, 3rd Onondaga Regiment, New York Volunteers, Army of the Potomac, Brandy Station, Virginia. This was the first letter I had ever received in my life, and I was so stunned I looked at Johnny, then at the letter, then back at Johnny. "Close your mouth and open the letter," he said. "It's from Sarah. I can tell her handwriting anywhere." Sarah is Johnny's sister, who is 14, and her handwriting is so small and so finely drawn that I thought it might break into 100 pieces if I handled the envelope too roughly. But I did manage to close my mouth and open the letter and read it too, after which Johnny said, "Well, what does it say?" So I read it to him. It was short, and I am not sure Lieutenant Toms would think it truly interesting and significant, but I certainly do, so I will copy it here. Dear Private James Edmond Pease, our brother Johnny wrote to us about your courageous actions last month, and about the way you charged ahead of the company to face the enemy alone. We were all very impressed by this, and moved by your valor and bravery, and I wanted to write to tell you that you are in our prayers and thoughts every day. Mother said that Johnny is certainly lucky to have a companion and friend like you, and I agree with her. With all sincerest wishes for your continued health, Miss Sarah Rebecca Henderson. Johnny grabbed the letter from my hands and looked at it. "If you write back to her," he said, "she will answer you, and I guarantee she will say much more. She is a chatterbox in Persian, and in letters usually. I will write her back just as soon as I can think of what to say." Among the articles Johnny got was a bag of sleeping herbs that his grandmother put together. They looked like twigs, roots, and leaves to me, but when I boiled them up, the smell was very sweet. Johnny has no idea what is in it. She goes through the woods near her house gathering this and that, was all he could say. It tasted just fine, not strong or bitter. Right now I feel very sleepy, but I made myself write this so I would not forget the details. Later, in my bunk, I will read my letter one more time and then pull my blanket around me snug. I must say this is the nicest Christmas that I can remember.